Hello, and welcome to today's Fireside Chat made possible by the teams at Hershey and Snap. I am Branden Harvey. I'm your moderator today. I'm the founder and CEO of Good. We are a media company focused on the good in the world. We celebrate good news and we celebrate doing good. And I'm just so excited to be a part of this conversation, diving into a topic that I am deeply passionate about, because today we're talking about how young people are using social media to create positive change by advancing inclusion, empathy, and well-being in an increasingly divided world. And I'll add that this conversation is being recorded. And in a moment, I'm going to ask each of our incredible panelists to introduce themselves. But first, I'll say this. A little bit of shameless promotion here. If you're interested in taking action on the issues that we talk about today, or have an idea to promote more connection or empathy or inclusion in your community, whether it's online or in person, check out the Heartwarming Project Action Grants program. It's super cool. Hershey is awarding $250 grants to 500 teams across the US, which is just so cool. And you can learn more and apply at heartwarmingproject.com. And so today I'm joined by Trisha Nicholas, Sofia Gross, Kaitlyn Benitez-Strine. Can each of you introduce yourselves and briefly share what you do at Snap?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. So great to be chatting with you guys today. Happy what I call Friday Junior, Thursday, but it's almost close to Friday. My name is Trisha Nicholas. I lead news and culture programming at Snapchat, so working with syndicated shows to ensure they're finding success on our app.
I can go next. I'm Kaitlyn, and I work on the Lens Studio ecosystem team, and I work with creators to make incredible Lens AR experiences.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. I am Sofia. I am based in our DC office, and I lead what we call our policy partnership. So I, like many of us on the call today, get to help Snapchat navigate the different ways that not only we can do good as a brand voice and a powerful platform, but also inspire our users to leverage ways that they can also make a difference in their local communities.
This just shows how big of a dork I am, but I just got goosebumps hearing about what y'all do, because I just love the way that you are creating good and creating the opportunity for good. And I guess I'll just start off with this first question, which is, there's no denying that these are incredibly dividing times. And we talk about the need to advance inclusion and empathy on social media. And we've seen that young people are being pioneers and absolutely paving the way. Trisha, you lead the programming and development of news and culture at Snapchat. Can you give us a few examples of what you're seeing young people do online to advance these issues, and how might older generations, I feel like I'm maybe an older generation at this point, how can we learn and take note from the young leaders of kind of this young generation?
That's a great question. It's funny because I can't believe I'm the old well, because I also am learning from Gen Z. Mm-hmm. So what I think generation can really learn from the younger, who are really paving the way through social activism on various social media sites, is honestly be raw and authentic. I think a lot of times the older generation, we try to be perfectionists, and we try to, when we're snapping in at events, say it's a rally or a protest, we want a whole production. We want it to be perfect. But what we're actually doing is we're missing the moment. Gen Z, they snap. They don't really care about what they look like at the moment, especially when they're out doing these type of wonderful movements. Say it's like Women's March, or say it's a BLM march. They're showing you what's going on. They're not trying to make it beautiful and pretty. They're just giving it to us as it is. And honestly, on the back end for us, that's the way we can see these movements happening. So I think the biggest thing is stop trying to be perfect. Don't make it a production. Be raw, authentic, and snap in the moment. Give it to us right now. What is going on? I think another thing they do really well is honestly cultivating community on social media, which is something that my generation, I don't think we were doing. We really were more so using social media, I would say, to just show off what we're doing for the day, or say to communicate with a friend. But this audience, this younger generation, they really use it to start movements, whether it's creating a hashtag to spur some type of awareness for whatever may be going on, or maybe it's just showing how big they come out in these numbers for these social events. I think that's something that's awesome. And I honestly think something that we all can learn from. So the biggest thing is don't be perfect. Just show us what's happening.
That's a good reminder. And I feel like our generation very much was very focused on curation and perfection. And even as somebody who's probably perpetuated that, like I look at this younger generation, it's just so refreshing to be like, oh, this is much more authentic and real and raw, and it's still compelling, and it's definitely challenged the way that I want to engage with social media, and definitely the people that are that I'm choosing to follow and allowing to lead me. So that's really fascinating. And kind of similarly, social media is really shifting the way in which we as a generation talk about or even take action on social issues. How does Snapchat itself how does Snapchat see itself shifting the ways in which we engage with different social justice movements like the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, echoing off what Trisha said, Snapchat is a camera company, and we have 249 million daily active users who are communicating with real friends on the platform and having these communications with each other. And especially at a time when we have to be socially distant and stay safe and healthy at home. I hope everyone's doing that. It's important to still have these conversations and stay safe doing that. So we see a lot of our conversations happening through the camera. When you open Snapchat, it goes to the camera for you to share what you are up to in that moment. And whether you use our other tools like stickers, geo filters to express yourself, I always lean into lenses, of course. So we've seen a lot of creators who have started to talk about their own social justice issues, such as Black Lives Matter. So we had a creator called Sammy Alderson, and he created a lens on the Landmarker the Landmarker feature lens that was on the Capitol building, where he was memorializing the lives of people who have been affected by police brutality. And so Snapchatters have the opportunity, again, social distancing, walking, to come across places in the world to have conversations. They can scan the building, see the lens, and then have a conversation about that and share that with their friends. And we also see people sharing experiences that can't happen in person anymore. So we had creators who built portal experiences to celebrate our champions of Pride. So for official lens creators, we're able to pair with Pride Media to celebrate our champions across the nation who are trying to push for equal rights in the LGBTQ community. And so you can learn more about them by going into portal experiences in a time where you can't actually go into physical buildings. So we're leaning more into digital shared experiences in order to get people to have these conversations when you can't actually meet together in person.
So it's so cool to think about how this technology can connect us in a time where we have to be physically distanced, but we can still be socially close. I cannot believe it, but we're only a few days away from the final day voting in the election. This year's Get Out the Vote effort has just been absolutely massive. It's projected that we'll probably have record numbers of voter turnout, giving, increased opportunity for representation in every aspect of our government, which is really exciting. Social media has been a huge driving force in registering record numbers of voters. And Sofia, you're a public policy manager at Snapchat. Can you tell us a little bit more about that effort on Snapchat? And knowing that not everyone who is tuned in can vote yet, maybe you can also tell us a little bit more about what you see as young people's role in civic engagement to be moving forward.
Yeah, of course. You're like, I can't believe it's almost here. I'm like, God, I can, and it happened already. No, I'm just teasing. For me, I think one of the most inspiring things about the work that I get to do at Snapchat is, if it were up to me, Snapchat would be a voter registration app, which is why I don't get to make those decisions. But it is incredible to see how much Snapchatters want these tools. And I get to do this work because we see our audience respond so well to it. I think what's really interesting is that the youth vote is typically a disenfranchised population in this country. It is one that traditional media and political campaigns are skeptical around whether or not young people are actually going to show up. Are they worth investing in? At Snapchat, part of our mission statement is to help people express themselves. We believe that there is no more powerful form of self-expression than civic engagement. One of the things that really always surprises me around civic spaces and opportunities is that, you know, this generation has been able to do anything they want from their mobile devices except engage civically. There is not an app that you can download to do things like register to vote or find your polling location. So we understand, as the platform reaching this demographic at scale, we have the opportunity to step up and build those tools out so that way young people have all the tools they need from the device that they're using all the time with their closest friends and family. To go one step further, you know, we believe in trying to cultivate a culture of civics in this country to make sure that young people understand the power of their voice. So when you turn 18 on Snapchat, for those of you tuning in who are not 18, a happy birthday message from Snapchat, where we will also give you the tools to register to vote. Because we know from research, once you begin voting, you will become a habitual voter and increase your likelihood of voting for the rest of your life. I think the other really important piece is just understanding the different pieces of the voting process. So amazing to take that first step and register to vote. But one of the things we're also leaning heavily into this election cycle is making sure that people understand their entire ballot. I remember showing up for the first time and not realizing that you voted for things past the federal level, and that is so upsetting. And voting should be the most empowering opportunity that you are given. And so we don't want our users to feel like they showed up for a test that they didn't get the chance to study for. So we've partnered with Ballot Ready to make sure that in-app you can review your entire sample ballot, so it is an empowering experience when you show up to vote. And then last but not least, you know, in theory, GOTV, get out the vote, should be the obvious step. But so much of what we see, especially with the youth vote, is that they actually do register to vote and then they just don't show up. So especially amidst the confusion and chaos of COVID-19, making sure that our users understand all of their options for voting, whether that's voting early in person, whether that's requesting a mail ballot, whether that's showing up at a drop-off location with your mail ballot, so on and so forth. One of the scariest statistics this election cycle that I keep telling people is that over 60% of 18 to 21-year-olds typically get their information of voting from a college campus. So with COVID, that entire resource is gone this election cycle, and we as Snapchat are hoping to step up and play that role. So we announced that we've helped over 1.2 million Snapchatters get help registering to vote, which is incredible. And most amazingly, over 57% of those users will be doing this whole thing for the first time. So team effort. Really, really amazing to see the impact, and much more to come. Democracy is an always-on campaign, so the work continues November 4th.
Oh my goodness, I just got goosebumps again. This is like, this is how much of a dork I am. I just love like hearing this kind of stuff, and I guess it's not really dorky. Like, this is so exciting for all of us, and it's just so amazing. I'm like, I'm just so excited. This is so cool. I'm just so happy for everybody who gets to vote for the first time and has everything that they need to do that. That's awesome. One thing that separates generations is the fact that this young generation, they're considered social media natives. They've grown up in a world where social media has already existed, and it changes how they use different platforms. How do you see social media's impact playing out over the next 25, 30, 50 years in the future, and what can we do to kind of, I don't know, to stir that into a more positive and inclusive direction? And maybe I'll bounce this off to you, Trisha.
Absolutely. Well, let me start by saying this. I am obsessed with Gen Z. I'm not going to lie to you. I think they are very different than my generation. I'm not going to say which one that is, and also the older one. But what I will say with what I see is that they're very empathetic, and because they grew up with social media. Mm-hmm. I think because of social media, their world is a lot smaller, and they have access to things that I wasn't able to see through television. I think that's amazing. I mean, look at, for instance, Black Lives Matter. Look at a lot of these social justice movements. I mean, this has been going on. Police brutality has been a thing, but now we're seeing it because of the camera, because of social media. I think that's amazing. I also think this generation, which again is amazing, they're so empathetic. They care about the issues. And I'm on the content side, as you guys know, so I literally see it through their content consumption. They're not taking anything as just fact anymore. They want to do their research. They want to see 4 different stories on it from 4 different outlets. And honestly, to be frank, they kind of don't trust like the bigger brands. They want to hear it from other people who look like them. So that's amazing. I think in 50 years, what we're going to see is a more empathetic generation. I think we're going to see people caring about each other again. I really do have hope for the future. I really do, just based on what I'm seeing them watch. I think what we can start doing today is start watching, get on Snap. Shameless plug, get on Snap. We have a wonderful slew of shows that will show you different parts of the world. It will definitely educate you on different people, different experiences, which I think will make us all empathetic and a little bit nicer, hopefully.
And I think that empathy is going to spread to, like, it's going to trickle up to all the other generations too. I think we just have so much to learn in that way, and it's just so exciting. I'm seeing that we're getting a few questions in the chat, which is really exciting. As a reminder for anybody tuning in, please submit questions. We're so excited to kind of dive into these. I want to share this first one. Somebody shared that they agree that bigger creators can play a big role in communicating social justice issues digitally. But the question kind of becomes, what happens when a creator goes against an issue or says something inappropriate? Is it up to people to view that as a mistake and nothing more? How should creators and audiences handle this? And I guess kind of from my own perspective, what's this balance between accountability and also learning in public? Because there's some sort of balance to be found, and I think probably this time period is where we're all wrestling with this a lot, and we can kind of set a tone for the future we want to live in.
So
I was gonna say, I know on my end, like, everything's a learning experience, and so I loved, Trisha, what you said about being authentic and real and like making mistakes. I don't want conversations to be stopped because you're afraid of what you might say. Talk with other people and then be receptive to the feedback from that. And I think we're allowing for those conversations to happen through Snapchat. I like, I can't speak too much, maybe you can, Trisha, but I love when we push out filters, encouraging people to talk about a topic and then showing both sides. So just, yeah, don't be afraid to be wrong. This is the time to figure it out and move forward, make mistakes and move forward.
I kind of feel like along those lines, the creators that I've maintained the most respect for especially over the last few years, as we've seen a rise in talking about social movements, have been not the ones who get it right all the time, because I don't know anybody who has fully understood every issue we faced over the last half decade. But they're the ones who apologize and they share what they've learned publicly. I love seeing creators who say, I used to think this, but then actually I had a conversation with somebody, or one of you commented, and I did some research and I realized I had that wrong, and I wanted to share that with you. Like, that's the most inspiring and encouraging thing for me. Got another question here, kind of specifically around the pandemic. We kind of already talked about this a little bit, this idea that that we're able to stay connected socially, even though we have to be physically distant. Somebody asked, how do you guys think that Snapchat is affecting the world during the time of this pandemic? I'm curious if there's more ideas that you have around this.
Yeah, so we thought about our response to COVID-19 in a few different ways. And I have to say, Trisha and Kaitlyn have been actively involved in our response. And one of the things that makes me so proud to work at Snapchat is in moments like COVID-19, where there is, this sense of rapid response of what is Snapchat's role, what can we do, how can we help, is how many people from across the organization show up to a meeting and raise their hand to help leverage whatever tool or resource or access that they have to help make a difference. I think one thing we're mindful of is we are reaching a demographic that is playing a very odd role during this whole pandemic, right? This is a demographic that can take on the responsibility of making a difference, who isn't necessarily being impacted in their own day-to-day lives. And I think so much of what Trisha said about Gen Z has really been shown in this moment of how much empathy that they have for the generation that are really being impacted in this, and taking on that burden of not being able to show up for school and not being able to hang out with their friends. So there was an initial response phase in which we were partnering with the WHO and the CDC and the White House Task Force to make sure that we had up-to-date and critical information on what this thing was to begin with, as we were all learning together for the first time how we could stay safe, how could we be a better member of our community to help slow and stop the spread of COVID-19. Then in this next phase, we started really thinking through, something we all feel, which is the mental health implications of this current moment. So separately at Snapchat, we had been thinking through what role we could play to help provide resources around Snapchatters that we knew were struggling with topics like anxiety, depression, and mental health, in which, Gen Z has been so vulnerable in their ability to actually, not hide these feelings and really share and talk about how they're experiencing some of these topics. So we also rushed up a product that we were hoping to launch a few months later that we called Here For You. So we had a first edition of Here For You that was specifically around mental health resources. So if you search for any of those keywords, we partnered with the best-in-class experts around those topics to provide resources to users when they needed it most. And then we also did a special edition of Here For You specifically for COVID. So when you search for any of those keywords, you also got resources from scientific and medical officials around the pandemic itself. And then, Trisha covers content, Kaitlyn covers lenses. Throughout the ecosystem of Snapchat, we were thinking through really what we like to call Snapchatty ways to get this information out there, whether it is a geo filter, whether it's a sticker, whether it's an augmented reality experience that gives you a 6-foot radius of things of when you should stay away from people. So really being thoughtful and staying true to what makes us Snapchat in our experiences, but still making sure that we were getting the most up-to-date information out there from the experts.
That's amazing. That's really, it's cool to see the ways that you're able to do things that are uniquely you. And, this might be a bit of a cheesy transition, but I fully believe it. I think that that's one of the things that we all should be doing when we seek out how to make a difference. Snapchat is trying to make a difference in the ways that only Snapchat can, and that's what makes this so special and meaningful, and why you've been able to register 1.2 million people and all these things. But each of us as individuals have things that are unique to our abilities, unique to our passions, talents, levels of privilege, life experiences, location, whatever it is, and we can lean into those ways to make a difference instead of trying to make a difference in the way that somebody else can. And when we all do that, that's where we move the needle for good the most. One thing, or I guess one thing that I kind of wanted to circle back on is this idea of we're talking a lot about the election, of course, because we're only a few days away from it ending. But what about those who are under 18 and want to make a difference? They want to move the needle for good, maybe even in the world of politics, or some level of that. Do you have any advice on the best ways that people under 18 can be active and engaged and be a part of moving the needle in this way?
I want us all to answer this question because I think we've all had such diverse life experiences, but I think the one thing we all definitely have experienced is that there are so many ways that you can make a difference, especially when you're under the age of 18. Understand, it's so funny because, a lot of politicians use this phrase of, you want to make a difference, go out there and get involved in your local community. And I'm always like, what does that mean? But you need to find, and my mentor, David Axelrod, said this to me when I was an undergrad working for him, but you need to find an issue that fires you up. If you could make one impact in society, whether it be gun control, climate change, college affordability, you name it, what is happening in your community that you want to seek out change for? And whether that be an organization that you want to volunteer with on the weekends, or whether that's an organization or a candidate that you want to volunteer for on weeknights and phone banking and canvassing, you showing up and fighting for that thing will make all of the difference. And I think that what's really, really important to and inspire that similar to what we spoke to, especially with creators of learning and changing their minds, that should happen for you politically as well. Of, what I believed at 16 and 17 absolutely changed to where I am now. And I think what's so healthy when you're under the age of 18 is beginning to have those conversations, talking to friends and family about the things that are happening in the world, and really finding that topic that, you want to seek out change, not only in your local community, but with the internet, you have a huge voice and you can get out there and really make the change that you want to see. And I'll hand it off to Trisha and Kaitlyn because I'd love to know what they think too.
Sofia, I think you covered it. That was amazing. I was going to say the same thing. I mean, yeah, no, that was good. That I +1.
Yeah,
That was great.
I always push towards lenses. Anyone 13 and up with a Snapchat account can always spread their word and in that way, and just get creative with it. Use our creative tools, have fun, and express yourself, ask questions, and just have an open, receptive mind.
It reminds me a little bit, one of the things that we have been reporting on at Good recently is stories of people under 18 making a difference in the world. And one thing that we found is that it's not just that young people have an equal opportunity to make a difference as people over 18, is that I think that they actually have an unfair advantage in the best way possible. If you're under 18 and so actually let me back up and say, if I want to talk with my elected representative, let's say my senator here in Oregon, I can call him up and I can schedule a time to do this. But honestly, they'll probably schedule me 3 or 4 months out. There's a chance at the last minute he'll have something he might cancel on me. Maybe he thinks I'm going to ask him too hard of questions. But if you're under 18 and you reach out with a few friends and you say, hey, we're really passionate about X, Y, and Z issue, we'd love to talk with the senator. Well, the senator's mind might start going through the idea of like, well, this will be a great photo op. I want to invest in the next generation. You can get that meeting, and then you can be the one to ask hard questions. So you can kind of be a little bit more of a, I don't want to say like Trojan horse, but like you're going to be seen as a little bit more, I don't know, they're going to open some doors for you that they may not open for adults. And the same goes with, I think, media. You think about when you are under 18 and you want to make a difference, you want to do some good in your community, you can probably call your local paper and they'll do a story on you, because it's a little bit more interesting that you're under 18 making a difference than if you're, me trying to make a difference. And you can use that to your advantage as long as possible. The other thing is, if you've got a school email address, this was like one of my favorite things when I was in high school and college. You can get a conversation with a lot more people than you can if you just got like a normal old Gmail, because people just want to help students. They want to invest in them in the way that they were invested in. And so if there's an activist that you admire, a nonprofit, a company, you can probably get a foot in the door and build that relationship and then use that for good in a really cool way. And I'm sure that's just scratching the surface. And so it's not just that I think young people can make a difference, is that they have an even better chance of doing it. And so thank you, I guess, just to people listening who are already doing that, because it's so energizing and exciting to see the way that you're using your unique privilege as somebody under 18 to do good. I kind of, as a part of that, I guess, we know that social media has the ability to make all of us a little bit more empathetic. I'm curious, when you're looking at Snapchat or just all of social media, what changes would you make to social media to make it more inclusive and empathetic, to make it a place that fosters that, not just for people who are already leaning towards empathy, but for those who may not be at the time? What can we do to kind of change those structures? And maybe I'll toss this over to you, Kaitlyn.
Yeah, I think it's just very important that we don't get siloed into our own confirmation bias. So I mentioned it before, how we have filters that encourage people to speak about issues, and then on the flip side, we will curate that into a story. So I think it's just very important to offer different point of views, and it's great to have a community that you go to, and obviously you're talking with your real friends. But sometimes when we're only talking to the same sort of person, we never get to hear the other perspective. So I would encourage other social media channels to always include differing perspectives and don't just lean into one direction. I forget who mentioned it before, but Gen Z might be a little bit less trusting of media these days. And so it's just very important to hear other perspectives to move forward.
That's really, really good. I just got another question in from Tiffany at Boys and Girls Club of America. She said, I love that Snap is so invested in empowering young people to make change. What advice do you have for adults to support the young people in their lives regarding the platform? so many times older individuals are afraid of social or are unfamiliar with the platform. I know that that's been true for the olds in my life. What do you think we can do there?
Yeah, so I work really closely with our trust and safety team, and so I spend a lot of time at safety conferences and speaking to, school officials, helping them understand what this Snapchat thing is, what they should be aware of. And I think that the biggest piece of advice I always have is download this thing, play around with it, add a few people, start to understand the native way that people are really using this thing. I think, the trickiest part for Snapchat is that people like to bucket us in as social media. Like Kaitlyn said, we actually consider ourselves a camera company with two very key different experiences on the platform. To your question earlier about, what positive roles social media can really improve around, I think that one of the things Snapchat has done really well as it relates to this topic too is we are not a metrics-driven platform. So, Trisha does not have an account that I can pull up and see all the vacations she's been on and how many followers she has and how many likes she's getting. And so we talk a lot about what that means from a mental health capacity, right? Mm-hmm. This is really not a platform of social competition and really just in terms of, we always say it really is who you are, and a very real version. And this is not every person you've ever met in your life. This is really a close friends platform where best friends are communicating in the ways that are very authentic to them. So I think that really sets us apart. But if you really want to understand this thing, I highly recommend downloading it, and then make sure that you add 1 to 2 people you're close with as well, so you can understand why communicating on this platform feels so different. The one thing I always tell my grandfather is that we're really, and think he really understands now, is that we are literally speaking to each other through photos and videos, which is something that otherwise, sending him a text message of what I'm looking at in Washington, D.C. is not the same as just showing him what I'm looking at in D.C. So those are some of the key nuances between us and some of the other platforms and what makes us a little bit different. And I hope you will be a new user soon.
That is really cool. That's so helpful. And I think that sometimes just giving people that opportunity to practice and to play around with it is so fun. I know that was my experience when I first downloaded Snapchat. I was like, why would you need to do this? And then you download it, you're like, oh yeah, this does the trick. This is great. And I love that it's not, I had never heard it described this way. It's not a metrics driven platform. And I think that's one of the big things that I think a lot of people are thinking about, right now with the world of social media and just how it affects our mental health. We've all seen documentary out. Maybe could you tell me a little bit more about the efforts being made by Snapchat, but also maybe just across social media to support the mental well-being of all of us as individuals as well as our society overall? Like, what do you think about this in terms of like each of your roles at Snapchat? And how do you make sure that, I guess maybe as a bit of a pivot too, how do you ensure that your platform is being used in the right way and to effectively champion the right causes?
I can start, but then I'm going to stop because I feel like everyone's hearing a lot of my voice. So really quick, I think the one thing that I always say as I am thinking through where Snapchat can make a difference, right? Because I think what's really hard from where I sit is that there are so many things that we would love to be able to be a part of and help make a difference around. But Snapchat is an expert in only Snapchat. And so much of our approach is by lifting up and amplifying the voices of the experts on all of these key subjects. So we take a look to see what we know our users are struggling with. In some cases, of course, those are topics like eating disorders and mental health or depression and anxiety. In some instances, that's bullying, and in some instances, that is suicide. And so we are making sure that we are partnering with the experts in all of those extremely distinct and extremely sensitive topics. So when users are seeking out content experiences related to those topics, we are surfacing them with resources to help them not only navigate those topics for themselves, but because Snapchat is a close friends platform, we also provide resources to be an ally to somebody who might be struggling in the hopes that they can then connect with their close friend on Snapchat around some of these subjects. And I think to your earlier question around time spent on social media, one of the biggest things that I think we've been really thoughtful around that Trisha spends so much of her day really thinking about is really the quality versus quantity of screen time. And I think that piece is super critical, especially for Gen Z, because the internet and all of these tools and platforms can be used to learn more about so many different topics, whether it be furthering, a certain school subject that you want to get better at, or whether it's learning about something that's happening in a country you've never visited. And so we really talk about it in terms of really measuring how we can further the quality of screen time as it relates to also contextualizing that through the quantity of screen time as well.
And just to piggyback off Sofia, that was a great segue into quality versus quantity. We are constantly monitoring everything that is on the feed, making sure that not only is it, because we're battling misinformation as well, so making sure that it's accurate, but also making sure that portrayals are correct, making sure that there's balance. And we have people who are constantly looking, doing editorial checks to make sure that that is in line. We really do care about self-esteem and ensuring that our audience feels good. As Sofia mentioned, we don't have metrics, we don't have likes for a reason. There's a reason for that. We really want you to come and learn and so forth, educate yourself and learn about the world around you. So we make sure that the world you're seeing via our media partners, it's an accurate portrayal of that.
Just going to add, the community guidelines also apply to lenses. We try to make our experiences able to be enjoyed by everybody 13 and up across the world. So some things that might be funny in the United States could be scary in Japan, and we take all reports seriously and encourage our creators to think about what they're creating so that anybody in the world can understand it. So that's part of my job. I'm always trying to see how we could make an experience be able to be accessed by the entire world. So we limit the size of the file so that no matter what phone you have, it will be the same experience. So just small things between accessibility and considering other people using your lens, whether it's a different color, gender, race, age, how will the experience be for them, and including that into your design process.
That's really thoughtful. And I'm getting another question in the chat. Somebody said, going off mental health issues, there are many individuals using Snapchat who are vulnerable to negative body image and developing eating disorders. How is Snapchat working to combat the issue of body image and promoting a positive and body inclusive environment?
So I'll touch on the product side really quick, and then I'll hand it over to Trisha for the content side. But one of the partners that we have for Here For You is the National Organization to End Eating Disorders. And so we partner with Meta to make sure that if you seek out any search terms related to what they know people are usually seeking out as they're struggling with that topic, there are amazing resources that they can get. And then again, like I said earlier, also to make sure that as an ally, any user who knows a friend struggling with that topic can also get the resources that they need to begin those tough conversations as a close friend as well.
Excellent. And to piggyback off that, via content, as I mentioned, the editorial guidelines that we ensure we're enforcing to make sure people are always watching the feed, to make sure people are looking their best selves. But another thing we do is we make sure that we are raising awareness. So there are creators or there are stories that speak about body dysmorphia or any type of promoting inclusivity. We make sure that we are amplifying those voices. We're finding those partners to work with and to share their stories with us, so we can just make sure we're raising awareness as well.
That's beautiful. And it kind of brings me back to this idea of empathy too. You have the ability on social media and Snapchat to get to know people who are, who are different from you or similar to you. And that can just help. I guess it's not even just empathy, it's also just feeling less alone. If you're somebody who is struggling with something and other people are authentically sharing about their struggles, that helps you know that it's okay to find help. It's okay to, to be concerned with these things. And it just helps you feel less alone. So I'm grateful for the good that can be done on these platforms, even in the midst of the struggles that we see around that as well. Let's see here. I'm trying to see if we've got any more kind of questions from the audience to dive into before I ask one final question. Let me just scroll through these really quick. I do have a comment from somebody, from audience member Daniel. They said that they would personally create more group interactive innovations such as Snapchat's group story where everyone in the story can post in it, thus creating a more close and tight-knit community and increasing connection. Interesting idea, Daniel.
I might also just selfishly plug Spectacles, which is just really incredible for sharing your own experience from your eyes. Like, so the ability to see what it was like to be in a specific situation is beautiful, and Spectacles does that in an incredible way. So I know we have a couple different versions and whatnot of it, but I think it's just really magical, the content that comes from your eyes through wearing these glasses.
It is, I mean, it's just so cool with the glasses to be able to see both your hands in a shot. It actually, there's something special about like, there's something connective about it where you're like, oh, this could be me. This could be my hands doing this thing. It's a very cool experience. Well, with that, I kind of want to end with one more question that I'm really excited about. I guess, first of all, thank you each for being here, for sharing a bit of hope with us, and also for all of the good work that you do in the world. I'll end with this, with so many news articles and social media stories about different current events, it becomes increasingly hard to focus on one particular issue and create change. What guidance and advice do you have for young people who are on social media and want to make a difference but don't know exactly where to start or how to focus?
I'd say the first thing, self-care. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And if you are, I work in news, so I'm a person who's constantly taking in news information, and it can definitely be daunting at times. It's a lot. So I try to limit as much as I can, because I still have to make sure I get it right for you guys on Snap. But I try to give myself a certain time. Like, I know I watch from this time to this time in the morning. I might check in here, and then at night I might just look a little bit, but not maybe within 3 hours of bedtime. Like, I want to make sure I give myself time to relax a little. So that's huge. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So make sure you're taking care of yourself and the information you're getting. The second part, I would say, is education. There's so many different causes right now. So I would say, I think it echoes Sofia's sentiment earlier when she was saying, like, find that one thing you love and that you would absolutely like fight for. What is it? And educate yourself on it. So that way, you know everything from A to Z on it. You know who the people are, the power players in that industry are, or so forth. And then you can go forward. The biggest thing is having the knowledge so you know what it is you are trying to fight for. But again, self-care. Take care of yourself first. Get your education, and then I'll see you guys outside.
I want to add, it's okay if you don't know what your passion is or if it changes. So I like to think of it as what is giving you energy. What are you excited for in the week? And then start leading into those activities and see how it feels. See if it's giving you life. And that's really where the passion is. And that can change, and that's okay. But just have fun and be excited about learning and trying new experiences, and yeah, you'll find your passion eventually.
Trisha always reminds me about self-care. I'm like, yeah, I'll get to that. She's always reminding me. She's so fabulous. I think as a young person, I think what Kaitlyn said about being okay with that changing as you're learning more is so important. I can't emphasize enough, like, what I thought I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to at 17, changing it at 19, changing it at 22. I've had 5 different jobs here at Snapchat, so my day-to-day is always changing. And I think that's so fun. I mean, I think that, we live in a world where there are so many things that you can make a difference around. And so I love that notion of education and learning and just really getting informed around, why is this a problem? How did we get to this moment? Really understanding the context for why we're in the current moment we're in. And then that will further empower you to be able to really show up and fix it. And then I would just say that there are amazing organizations out there who need your help. I mean, so many of you tuning in, like, you grew up on the internet. You understand the power of these digital tools much better than many senior people making decisions around how these platforms and tools should be used. So you inherently, just given the generation you grew up with, have so much knowledge in terms of the power that digital platforms can hold in terms of making a difference. But make sure you find that thing that gives you fire in your belly, that you're hungry to solve for, that you wake up in the middle of the night because you have ideas, or you're in the shower and you're like, oh my God, I thought of the best idea ever. And really this should be about your passion, because if you can do something full time that fires you up, that gets you excited, it doesn't feel like work at all. And I do think in life, that's one of the greatest blessings you can have. But the fact that you're asking the question, the fact that you're tuning into a webinar like this to seek it out, I have no fear you will figure that thing out. And if I can personally be helpful to you, I'm sofiag@snap.com. Please shoot me a note. And I'd love to get any ideas. I saw some amazing ideas in the chat of ways that you think Snapchat can be used to make a difference. I know I'm speaking on behalf of the team when I say we love your ideas, and in many cases, you guys might know Snapchat better than us. So can't wait to hear what ideas you have. And thank you. This has been wonderful.
Shameless plug this way too. What are you guys watching? Let us know as well. Trisha@snap.com. Honestly, would love to know what you guys are watching. It's important that we're able to find media outlets that are empowering and helping you guys feel great. So would love to know how you guys are learning. Trisha, TRISHA@snap.com.
My email's a doozy, Benitez-Strine@snap.com. But if you just post on anything like lensstudio.com or the forums and whatnot, you'll find me.
That is amazing. And what amazing note to end on, this idea that we all have the ability to make a difference. We can all find our thing. And I think that's a good reminder. I don't think that you have to do everything. You don't have to make a difference on every single issue. I work in the world of good news, and so therefore I also, pay a lot of attention to bad news. And the thing that I'll say is, if there's a piece of bad news in the world that breaks your heart, let that be a sign that that's something that you care deeply about. And you might care more deeply about this issue than other people do. And there's something else that breaks those people's heart. And use that heartbreak to fuel you. And I hope that is a little bit of an encouragement that the sadness you may feel around whatever bad news story might come, next month, next year, whatever it is, you can be the one to turn it into a good news story, responding by being a part of it. And just like Trisha, Kaitlyn, and Sofia said, by choosing to find the things that energize you and make a difference in those ways. And so, I don't know, this is just so exciting and it's so cool. I'm just so excited to learn from, this next generation, allow you to lead me. And thank you again, Kaitlyn, Sofia, and Trisha for creating platforms that allow us to do that and for working so hard to do this. And I'll remind everybody in the audience, if you're interested in taking action on these issues, or if you have an idea to promote more connection, empathy, and inclusion in your community, again, whether that's online or in person, check out the Heartwarming Project Action Grants Program, because Hershey is giving you $250 grants to 500 teens across the country, and you can use that to make a difference. And I genuinely am just so excited to see the creative ways you do that. You can learn more and apply at heartwarmingproject.com. And so, one more time, thank you so much to the teams at Hershey and Snap for hosting this event and this conversation. Thank you, Trisha, Sofia, and Kaitlyn for joining me today. And thank you to each of you attending, celebrating good, and going out and doing good.
Thank you, Branden, and thank you, Hershey. So excited and honored to be here.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.